Hey, this is just a video to run through some details on the DLive OneMix app. So if you need to log in, if the iPad has just been started from no power at all, or from off, NLCC lowercase is the password to this one. We need to use that all the time on the mini iPad as well. But once you're in, you're probably on the NLCC audio network, which is what we want. So we could check that in settings, and I could just confirm I'm on NLCC audio. I could change that if it was wrong. We don't need to know this password because it is memorized by the iPads that need it. And there's two different DLive apps. There's MixPad, which lets you bounce around between different mixes. So you can be controlling what's happening out in the congregation. You can be controlling the live stream, the foyer, and everyone's in-ear mixes. So this is a really powerful app, but it gives you enough control to make a lot of mistakes. So we'll use this when we need to, because we don't have 4 different iPads, one for each wireless in-ear mix. So if we're using 4 different wireless packs, we're going to need to share the control of them. And that's why we have this app on here for singers and players to use. But the OneMix app zeroes in on one mix. And once you've set that, the whole app is always going to be controlling that mix. So that's the app we're going to be looking for in this video. So that's the white one called OneMix. We don't want to be in demo mode. We want to be in the other mode, which is to actually talk to the board. And this board has an address, 192.168. Oops. 192.168.102.109. And this is written in label maker tape on the back of the little iPad mini. We're not doing that with this one because it's being shared with youth ministries, and it has this nice rubber case on it. And hopefully someday some IT person, once we have an IT person that we can talk to about it, this should be able to just say worship center or some more useful thing than its actual address. We should be able to use a host name, but we haven't made that work over our Wi-Fi network yet. So that's why we have to put in this silly address. So once you're in, the only user control now is admin, and I've taken the password off. When there was a password, it again was just NLCC lowercase, and this is what you'll see in the app. There's 3 menus on the top, and it'll drop you into processing, which is the least useful of them. You don't need that at all. The 2 you're going to use are mix, when you're actually mixing your channels, and setup to control what shows up on all these screens. So mix is cool because it gives you a top layer and a bottom layer, and they can be different things. So that you have 2 of your layers of faders in front of you all the time. So what I would do is have the My Mix layer on the top, which is always the one that has your overall level in it. And then you can bounce around between the other custom layers that you have built. So how to build those, we're going to look at the setup. So let's look up at the My Mix layer first. That's the one that, again, has your overall level. I would leave the overall level sitting at the 0, which is kind of like full blast without boosting it or cutting it. So this is kind of like the normal is up at 0. And I would control the overall level with the volume control on your belt pack itself. So I would leave this set and control it with your belt pack. So if you ever needed to mute to just, like the music's too loud and you're just trying to talk to someone on stage, you can quickly, oh, we're in setup mode. When you're in mix, you could mute your master and yeah, just quickly hear what you're doing, for example. So if I take this away, the app would warn me that there is no mix selected and the whole app isn't controlling anything. So under mix options, you have to pick one of these. So now I'm controlling a monitor wedge that doesn't exist. And normally it's IEM 1, 2, 3, or 4. We've changed these first two to specific names for this coming Sunday. So it's Megan and Tiana. This was controlling Megan's in-ear mix. So I selected one Megan. This name can be changed by the sound person, and probably should be, especially if we're using more than two. It's just a good reminder of whose mix we are controlling. So as soon as I picked that, it says this whole app is controlling the one Megan mix, IEM1. And what I would do is fill up this layer. So there's some space here, and I'd fill it up with the things you need the most access to. So here's your overall volume, probably all singers, and I would add maybe some main instruments to this. Under inputs, you might want the worship leader's instrument, you might want acoustic guitar. I would probably have the overall mix either at the beginning or the end of this layer, and you can change the order by just dragging it to the beginning or to the end of things. And then have vocals, sure, click next to it if that makes the most sense to you, some main instruments, and then you're set to go. And just try to remember everything that you've put there, and then build your custom layers accordingly. You probably don't want a ton of doubling up. So I might think, okay, I want all of the other instruments, guitars, and bass and tracks to live here, again, in some order that makes sense to me. I would put these 3 track pairs together. This is overall tracks. Percussion is anything that's percussive in the tracks, like drums and loops and other things that are percussion. And then we try to put all the guitars separately here. So you might not want all of those things, or you might want different levels of those things. So you can control that. You can also pan things. On the vocals, for example, I find it helpful to like separate 2 female background singers. So one's a little more in my left ear and one's a little more in my right ear, to help distinguish between the 2 different voices, especially if they're, alternating between harmony and melody, and it's not always easy to tell who's singing. That a little bit of separation in space can help that a little bit. But let's say we've built the instruments and tracks that we want into this custom layer. These are some overall other things. And I like the idea of drums at the very end of it all, so that your bottom layer is just controlling drums overall mix. There's a new thing we very recently added where there's an inside kick drum and an outside kick drum, and they have very different characters. The outside kick drum is the one we've always had, and it's more on the boomy, rounder side. And the inside kick drum is like more crisp. It's just the beater attack. So if you're just trying to hear the rhythm and hear the beat a little better, you could probably get by with a little less click if you had more of the kick in sound, for example. But yeah, we have 2 kick mics, 2 snare mics, and all the other drums are living in here. And it looks like there's other handhelds and other stuff here. So you can just build this with whatever you'd like. And then when you're in mix mode, again, you have those 2 layers. So the most frequently used things can be on the My Mix layer, and then I would flip between custom 1, 2, and 3 on the bottom, and always have, like I said, the most frequently used thing, including your overall level, on the My Mix level. And like I said, you can mute your overall mix and unmute it. Be mindful, these mute buttons are actually muting the channel for everything, including the house. So if I muted the click now, Corey happens to be doing an instructional keyboard workshop in the worship center right now, and I would be muting his click for him and his recording and everything else if I hit that mute button. So the mute is very powerful. It's controlling it everywhere. The pans and balances are just for you though. So I can choose to have this singer more in my left ear by sliding this to the left, more in my right ear, and then I can control overall volumes with the levels. So all of that is just controllable channel by channel. So that is the OneMix app. I hope that helps.